Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I am honoured to introduce the groundbreaking, critically acclaimed choreographer, artistic director, and composer, Hofesh Shechter, who is without doubt one of my favourite contemporary dance creators working today. Hofesh's work is deeply visceral and experienced, and whenever I see his work, I invariably contemplate the deeper questions about life, politics, and power. I still remember the first encounter with Hofesh's work, watching a piece called Political Mother. That experience literally blew me away, and I went back to see it the very next night. The Hofesh Shechter Company has collaborated with the Sadler's Wells Theatre in London, and as part of their digital Dance in Focus series, is giving you an opportunity to take part in dance workshops where you can explore the distinctive movement style of Hofesh and learn excerpts from his choreography, which is quite a unique opportunity. So let's find out more about this exceptional choreographer. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's a little bit sunny, so I'm better.
So we're both in London, but we're both still in our homes.
Yeah.
So tell me first of all, how have you been dealing with the lockdown experience and the whole COVID situation?
Well, I think like everybody, the lockdown situation was a combination of frustration, benefiting from some time at home with the family, a lot of ups and downs. Obviously for the company, being an internationally touring company, we were, in effect, the media just unable to operate, so it's been about half a year now that we are not able to do what we do best, which is show the world, the work all around the world. So of course, we were doing a lot of planning and preparation. It gave a lot of time for thinking and for contemplation. And hopefully we are going to be back in the studio in early November and starting to prepare for a tour that will happen next year, if if everything is okay. But yeah, it's been challenging, but interesting. Yeah.
Well, I think it was just last week, I watched a piece called Untitled, which was presented on Zoom the other day, which I love to go into these things not really doing too much research. I like to have a first experience when I see the piece. And I was so taken about how relevant the piece was, how it had so many different layers. For me, it really asked questions of the viewer about society, the restrictions we're living in, about participation, our voyeurism, social media, our collectiveness, how separated we are, the spectacle of dance, the human need to move in these times. Tell me about creating this piece.
So actually, this piece was created originally, I think, in 2005, if my memory doesn't betray me. And it was made for a company that asked me to make a piece in the round. So it was, it was a thing that the audience will sit around, and I made the piece with the thought that for whoever saw the piece or didn't, basically in the third part of the piece, the dancer leaves and the audience are confronted with themselves and with the empty space. So the piece was made with that thought in mind already, and there is some text that leads the audience emotions and thoughts at that point. But yeah, it felt, we were thinking about what we can do digitally, and I find the digital performance very challenging, obviously, because one of the most powerful things about live performance is that we know that it happens now, and we are all together in a room. That energy, that chemical interaction, you just can't match it. And you can match it a little bit where you see like live sport. We all sit at home and sit, but it still has that power. So it made me think about that. How do I get the audience to feel that this is happening now, and how do I get them into the room? Well, I can't get them into the room, but that's why we were projecting the screens off the faces of the people on Zoom live on four walls around the dancers. So that it was a very simple thought in the beginning about how to get this to feel very live. And I have to say, it took me aback when we did the first streaming. I was doing the filming of the dancers, so I was as well inside these four walls with all the people looking at me, and my mind was racing because I was starting to think weird thoughts like, can they see me now? and then I thought, no, they can't see me, I'm behind. But you see all these faces, and you know that they are there now observing what's happening inside that square. So you are right, it was just a really multi-layered experience also for me, and very powerful dreams during this week. So yeah, sometimes you don't really know what the piece is going to create in the sense of thoughts and emotions, but that because it came from the real issue that I had in this time, which is how to get my audience into the space. I think that made it very relevant when we had partial success in bringing the audience in.
Let's go back a little bit further. You were born in Israel, and you started dancing and playing music very early on in your life. Tell me about how you sort of transitioned or found your way into dance when you were younger.
So in school we all had to do folk dancing. We had from the age of 6 or 7. It was on a Friday at around noon, and everybody gathered. It's a thing in Israel, or it was in my school. We gather in the school hall and we do folk dancing. And I have to say, I wasn't, I still didn't I didn't fall in love or anything. I was very embarrassed. I felt embarrassed about my body. And at a certain point, the teacher told me she thinks I'm pretty talented, and said that there is a youth folk dance company that I should go and check out. And I went and checked it out, auditioned, and they took me. And I have to say, the first thing that really excited me was the sort of sense of community that it had, and meeting young kids and people from all around town, and the idea that we are touring. So there was something about the lifestyle that suddenly really was really interesting to me and attracted me. And after I was there for a while, I met a few dancers from the academy in Jerusalem, and I started to fall in love with the idea of taking dance more seriously. So just at the age of 15, I joined the Jerusalem Academy of Dance and Music. And again, it was then there was a combination of things. It was the lifestyle and the physical challenge. The fact that I didn't feel comfortable with my body was something I wanted to crack. I wanted to be able to feel good with myself. I knew that there is something about this. It's like a key that will make me at peace with myself if I can be at peace in front of other people in expressing myself. So something about it not being comfortable attracted me to getting better at it. And then I discovered all the creative possibilities that can give you, and so on. And from there on, I joined the junior company of Batsheva Dance Company in Israel, then the main company, and then I left to Europe and worked a bit in projects and so on. So that's how it started,
And after your jaunt into Europe, you made your way to London, and you joined the Jasmine Vitamin Company. Tell me about your time with the company and when you also started creating your own works.
So yeah, it was interesting working with Jasmine because it was such a different way of working. It's a highly theatrical dance, work, and a lot of what I did before wasn't like that. So, I felt like every choreographer I worked with, I learned a lot from. And it was interesting to see the construct of the work that kind of initiates from a different place, not from the physicality. But after about a year and a half with Jasmine, I kind of felt, and I felt it for a while, that I want to do my own work. I want to create my own work. There was a lot of fear involved. Like for a long time, I was not doing it. I thought, oh, I don't know. Do I have what to say? Is it going to be good? Worrisome thoughts. And at the end, I just had, I think, a couple of months off from the project with Jasmine. I thought, I'm just going to create something. I'm just going to do it, jump, and see what happens. And then I created the first duet fragments, the first work I've done. And I have to say, one of the most exciting things for me was to create the music as well. That was for me, because I was kind of a professional dancer up until then. Making the music and having it perform in a professional environment was like, wow, that's exciting. And then I kind of discovered also the pleasure of creating something as a whole, the music, the atmosphere, the movement, the concept. It was suddenly understanding that you can be the chef of quite a large meal, or quite a lot of aspects of the meal. And yeah, so that's how, from Jasmine. And then I decided to take a year off being a dancer and dedicate myself to choreography. It was a kind of like a deal I did with myself. I said, it's a year I don't take any dance jobs because being a dancer is very demanding, and just give myself to choreography. It was a simple deal. If I can make a living by the end of that year, I carry on. It's about the exchange with the world. If the world, gives me something in return, just some food and a roof over my head, then I'll continue because, I want to create and I'm curious about it. And so that's how it started. And yeah, obviously by the end of the year, I was fine. I had more opportunities to create, and it grew from there. Yeah.
Your work is very distinct. I think that's almost an understatement to say. In fact, you always know when you're watching your work, it seems so very, very original. How would you describe your movement language, your choreographic language, in your own words?
In my own words, I think it will be very different to how other people describe it, because I want to say there is something shameless about using whatever I need. And in that sense, I don't know if you could focus or zoom on exactly what that is, but perhaps it's that atmosphere of I'm just looking around and looking inside, and I will use whatever works. It's about getting to the root of the nerve somehow of a feeling, and using whatever tools I have, be it movement, be it imagery, be it sounds, text. I'll use anything to try to focus and arrive to the root of a nerve of a feeling. But in that sense, I can tell you what's important to me sometimes about movement, quality. I really love the flow. I really love the elasticity of movement. I love thick movement, but I love also other things, So I would say, and if you look at different works, in the same time, there is something very eclectic. That, different works can look very different. So it's very hard for me to define. I would say, for me, when I walk into the studio, there's a matter of being connected to myself and true to myself, and not forgetting my audience in the same time.
And when you go into the studio, when you're approaching new work, what is your method or your process? Do you go in with some very set ideas? Do you have the music first, or do you work with the dancers to co-create? What's your approach?
I don't have one system. It's really chaotic. I would say my one good quality is persistence. I come with the idea that I want to create something. I might have a, a sense of the energy of it or not, but I want to create something. I want it to be moving, and I'm persistent. So that's a starting point. But then each time it will be a bit different. Like sometimes I will come with a sense of the atmosphere, um, a sense of the rhythm of the piece, the sound of it. Sometimes there will be an idea, like something really that I want to explore. Sometimes I'll be so empty. I'll come into the studio with a lot of fear and think I'll just start moving and analyze the movement as it comes and see what it means to me. Um, More and more as the years pass, and I work with my dancers for many years, they are more involved in the creation process, in the sense that I really involve them in my thinking, in the energy of things. They can start to help me create as well. They become very sophisticated movers that understand my movement and what I'm looking for. And so my creative brain is expanding to them. So yeah, it's really something that grew with the years, that creativity in the group. But I'm always there to be the chef, to make the decisions, to organize the chaos in the space, or to decide when it's chaotic. But there is no methodology. It's a really chaotic experience, I have to say. And the only thing that holds it together is wanting to continue, or deciding to continue, even when it's tough, which is quite a lot. So, yeah.
For me, each of your pieces feel like these new universes that explode into being. And as you walk into the theatre, you never can anticipate what sort of world is going to be presented. And they're so absorbing and sometimes so shocking as well, which I love. Where do you get these inspirations from? Because, as you say, your work is quite varied and touches on different types of subjects. Where do you get inspired from?
Well, again, first of all, it's nice to hear, because in a way that's the kind of relationship I want to have with my audience, which is, you perhaps you enjoyed my last work very much, great, but you know that you're going to walk into the theater to see the new one, and you just don't know what you're going to get. It's like a bag of surprises, and some of them will be great and interesting, some of them will be upsetting. I'm not introducing old work. I'm not interested in recreating. I mean, I can restage an old work as it was, but doing a new work that will be like the old work is just, for me, it's just boring. So in a way, I'm looking for that fresh new angle on things, and I think for me, again, it's being connected to myself, allowing my rattling thoughts, my rattling emotions to rise, and I'll just take a notebook and a pen, and I'll just puke everything that comes to mind, see what's bubbling up to the surface of my mind and emotions. What am I busy with? And normally it will be also connected to things that people around me are busy with, and what's happening around me, in my world. um, and that keeps a level of honesty to something I actually care about, creating about something that I'm actually busy with, rather than trying to satisfy something else, an aesthetic or an idea or a concept. It's very difficult for me. When I go and do commissions, I think people know by now. It's like I come and if I do a new work, I'll do what I do. Nobody will tell me, we want you to make a piece about the human flesh and blah blah. I'll be like, that it's not how it works for me. So it is really about connecting to something that I'm curious about at that point of time, and hopefully that's different from what I was curious about last time. There is a through line. I will always be obsessed with human nature versus the animalistic side of us. There's something between the brain and the heart, between control and loss of control, between social structures and individuals, the question of freedom. There is some obsession there, but again, like I said before, it's the angle that changes. So yeah.
And where do you think this obsession of those subject matters come from? Do you feel that it comes from a place or an experience, or is it just your natural curiosity?
Well, I'm sure it's connected to experience and place. I was born in Jerusalem, grew up in Israel, a highly intense place. Every human emotion you would experience, say, if you grew up in a small village in Switzerland, you will feel as well in Jerusalem. Only in Jerusalem, it might be a little bit more intense, depending. I don't know. You can have very intense experiences everywhere, of course, but to generalize the experience, Israel is a highly politicized place. Everything is in your face, and the question of power, the question of freedom, it's really like you can't grow up not seeing these questions or dealing with them. So I'm sure it has connection to that, and to my personality type, and perhaps to my education and so on. It's very difficult to analyze why someone would be obsessed with one thing or another. My name in Hebrew is Hofesh, and it means freedom in Hebrew. So, call it a blessing or a curse, but that could be a kid that had to think about what that means. Does it even exist? I'm trapped in my body, or am I free to move my body? Do I make choices, or are they predetermined? So I would say, of course, the totality of the experiences I had, where I'm from, my personality type, my name, that will all, lead to being obsessed with certain subjects.
And you mentioned before about working with your dancers and the types of ways in which you ask them to move physically, but also to experience emotionally. Tell me about how you draw those types of performances, or ask the dancers to perform those types of movements, and how that feels for them. How do you achieve that with them? Because it looks really challenging to perform the work.
Mm-hmm. I mean, really, when I speak with the dancers, I feel that when we communicate, it's never about how it looks. It's never about the shape, or it's always about how it feels. It's about what's the sensation or what's the feeling when you do the movement. You know, if you push, there are different ways to push. It's like you push something very thickly, or you try to push someone that will, it's very simple. It's very action based. Normally quite plain in the sense that it's not connected to emotions, but it could be. You can push something really angrily, or you can push something being very cold. It is a lot about how it feels from the inside to do the movement. Of course, we can then clean the counts, make sure that we don't have the arms too up or too down, and so on. But in essence, for me, once they find a way to feel it in a way that feels um, honest to them, that they feel like they connect to them, when they own it, this is when it really becomes interesting, because I want to see them. So it's a paradox. I'm asking them to do something, but then I want to see them doing it in their way. But that's the interesting thing for me. That's discovering how you are pushing, harshly or coldly someone, and how you connect to it, and what emotion that brings out from you. And I think that's what makes also the company interesting for me, that it's like there is a kind of an energy that we all move in the same way, but in the same time you feel that it's a company of individuals. Each one has their own character, their own way to express that very same emotion. That's what we call individual. So it's really about the sensations. It's really about them finding a way to own it and feel like because also then it's more powerful. I mean, the end of the day, I'm not on stage, they are, and they have to believe and connect and express these things that mean something to them, and in return the audience can be moved. So yeah, this is really the thing that matters to me most.
The dancers do look really raw on stage, and I often sit there thinking it feels like everything's been stripped away, but also everything exists in the moment. And I wonder, you're talking about your communication with the dancers, what type of feedback do they give you about what it's like to perform the work once, they've finished on stage? What do they say about their feelings?
Wow, that's a really good question. I've been choreographing for what, I don't know, 15 years now. I don't think I heard that question before. That's
Oh,
a huge compliment.
thank you.
No, it's a really interesting question. I never actually sat and had a conversation in these terms of dancers telling me, how it feels to perform your work. Um, I need to think about it. I need to dig and find whether there were conversations that were similar, because I think I don't know. In a way, I think the dancers seek for feedback from me after performances. It's I will ask them how was it, and sometimes they will say, yeah, that was fun, or I didn't feel so connected. I didn't have a good show, but not in terms of what the experience is. I think, and I never spoke with them about it. And now I'm going to ask them how does it feel really. I feel like it's very challenging. But I don't know. I'm not. I don't feel that being a dancer is my calling. I was a dancer for a while, and it was just hard for me, just difficult. I suffered a lot. So I don't know. To me, it looks like really challenging to remain in the moment, to remain in the emotion. I hope that they are having a very powerful experience, and a kind of an ecstatic experience somewhere where they give something to the audience. Um, but I need to check with them.
Well,
I'll get back to you.
be interesting to hear, because just from the audience perspective, or from my perspective, that of course that's all I can talk about really, is when I watch them, it is so it's such an absorbing experience to be and to see them on stage. They, yes, of course, all dancers are absorbed by their character or by their role or challenged by the work, but there seems to be something in the way in which they are really present physically and emotionally, but without any sort of superfluous emotions. It's very raw. It's quite difficult for listeners to understand, sort of, I guess, if you haven't seen the work, what we're talking about. When you see it, or you may or may not agree with me. But
I think,
yeah,
I think, you know, something that we speak about a lot, actually, which will sound like a paradox, is not to try to perform the work for the audience. And so you are not trying to present something to the outside, but you're trying to experience something from the inside. And sometimes if I try to explain to people how that might feel to watch, it's like watching National Geographic film about animals. The animals are not performing for the camera, they are just being, you know. And if the animal is experiencing something difficult or beautiful, you as an audience member are watching the animal experience or the subject experience something powerful for themselves. They're not doing it for you and trying to present it to you in one way or another. And that's what we're trying to do with the dancers. We are trying for them to have a powerful experience that is not for the audience. It's with the audience is observing it, but it's not presented to the audience and wrapped. And perhaps that's the raw feeling. You know, I would always tell a dancer, you know, if you do that thing, it's better if you feel like, do it in a way that you would have done it if you were alone in a room. Don't worry about what people see, what they think, what they get. You be totally inside this experience, and then the audience will just see what they will see. I mean, you know, we can go into the another layer of the complexity of dance, which it's so subjective. I mean, every audience member sees something else because they know something else and feel something else, and had a sandwich or not before the show, and they have a headache or not, and they had a fight with their boyfriend or not, you know. So it's such a subjective thing, and in the end of the day, you know, for us with the dancers, we try to perform in a way that they experience something powerful in a not presented way.
as the artistic director of your own company, what do you look for in dancers to join your company?
What I look for is a very human person, a person that has a human, the richness and variety of human emotions, or perhaps that there is something fragile, there is something. For me, I say human. I don't know. Each person can think about another thing, and actually, for me, there is a connection between human and quite fragile, or kind of, I call it a bit of the loser type, and I feel that I have a bit of the loserish in me. There is something a bit broken. There is something a bit fragile, unstable. You know, not like. And again, it's something that comes with. It's not the kind of dance where we try to appear strong and beautiful. It's the kind of dance where we try to reveal the weakness and together with it the beauty of the human mind and body and structure. You know, we are an imperfect, beautiful thing. And it's what I'm looking for in a dancer. Of course, I want them to be, you know, rhythmical, physical, be able to have the skill to perform the movement in the qualities that I'm looking for. But essentially, I will fall in love with a dancer, you know, with their eyes, with their expression, with something that makes me move, you know, that moves me. Because that's the experience I'm looking for, you know.
And so tell me about the collaboration with Saddler's Wells, because here we are talking about your movement language and giving people the opportunity to take some workshops. Why was this important to you, and how have you made this sort of happen for people?
I mean, so many reasons. First of all, looking at the lockdown and the inability of the company to, you know, normally we travel around the world, we perform, and everywhere we go to perform, we teach workshops to students, to young people. You know, there is something about educating and having the young generation join what we're doing and inspiring them. So, of course, in this period, when Sadlers came with this idea, we were very happy about it. It's a way of connecting with more people. It's a way of bringing the work to more people. And you know, I find it challenging to put things online because of the permanence of it. So dance is impermanent. So when you go and teach a workshop, it happens in the moment. It's like a dance show. It happens in the moment. It's very difficult to talk about it after, and it kind of feels like it belongs to the moment. And when you film something and just leave it online, you're like, you might watch it in a year and feel, oh, I don't know if that actually. But in these times, I'm thinking, just let it be, let it go, and we just have to put material and resources out there for people to get inspired. And I think a lot of people enjoyed some of these workshops are for dancers and some are for non-dancers, just to come and explore and discover, a little bit how, of course, it's just the edge of the iceberg, but discover how we're working, the kind of how we try to liberate ourselves, how we try to strengthen ourselves, find creativity. So, it was just a really interesting thing to do, especially in the midst of, being unable to travel around and do it, in person.
With the dance industry being completely decimated, rather, by the lack of government funding and policies that don't allow performances that are financially viable, it's a very sad situation, particularly in this country, but around the world. What is next for you and for your company? What does the sort of short-term, medium-term look like beyond? Or
well, we are, especially because we are touring, we want to tour in the UK, but now it's really, really problematic. Like you said, financially not viable for theaters to actually allow anyone to perform. Rehearsals are very problematic with the socially distant situation. So, but we are making plans to start rehearsing in November, socially distant, but see, how much we can get together actually that just to put some work out there, in conversations mainly about 2021. That's the truth, with venues in the UK and internationally, and holding on to our crystal ball and to hope. Nobody knows, but we are hoping that there will be some regulations. First, we are hoping that the situation will get better, of course, but if not, that there will be some regulations that will just open up a little bit the ability of our, it's not just dance, it's the theater industry to operate and to, of course, it has to be in a safe way, it has to be in a way that doesn't harm more people, but are there ways that can happen, and is someone really exploring, and is someone investing the money in it? And these are difficult questions in time where nobody has money, but we are hoping that there will be some opening that just allows the industry to survive, because there is only that much longer that the industry will actually survive without oxygen at all. That it's just making it very difficult. So we are hoping, we are making plans. There's a lot of penciled tours, in the UK and internationally. We are hoping, next year comes and around February we are starting to rehearse, and from March to start touring. But saying that now feels, I could sound very stupid if you play that in April and we are all sitting at home, or like a wonderful prophet if we were touring. So we really don't know. We are of course making so many plans with sub plans and B plans and C and so on. I think we're now in a plan like Z or something.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice, a big question I know, but what advice would you give to other aspiring choreographers who would like to forge a career like yourself? Hard to replicate, I think, but particularly in these times, in these challenging times. Any words of advice?
I mean, my advice in this time will not be different from any other time, unfortunately, for the ones that listen and care. It's that nothing can replace action, and in this time, I appreciate it's very difficult, but actually, going into the studio and making movement and trying to construct and putting it together and constructing a work, trying to have finish call it products or finished work. It doesn't have to be long, but trying to, the experience, the actual experience of making is the only real school for anything really, I think. But you can think about it a lot, you can worry about it, you can speak with people, you can schmooze everybody, get support. Nothing will help you other than just practicing. And practicing is doing. And a lot of times I see, young creators that did one cool piece and then they are trying to, go and present it everywhere. But it's not, I mean, of course you want your work to be out there, but the only thing that will improve your skill is practicing. It's just really boring, I have to say, and really hard. So it's always my advice: try, every opportunity you have to create new work, just take it. Might don't be too, it might be a bit of a compromise on the numbers of people, on the level of the dancers. Maybe you're working with a school, it doesn't matter. It's all about practicing and keeping on doing. And then, it's out of your control. If the world wants more of it, then they will ask for it. And if not, then you just have to fight harder and keep on doing,
Well, that's fantastic advice. Thank you
Sure.
so much. So thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your call.
And I just want to very, very quickly, for listeners and viewers, make sure you take the opportunity to take one of the company classes, company workshops, visit the company's website or jump onto Settlers Wells Theatre website and try out the workshop. Thanks so much.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.